Interesting. Come to find out, Trading Places was originally supposed to be for Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder, but because of what was going on with certain uses of certain pharmaceuticals, that was not going to be allowed on the set. So they were replaced by Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray. Ironically, the pair of these two were incredible together because if you go back to Silver Street, Stir Crazy, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, which is one of my favorites, and that's when a young Kevin Spacey was on the scene. If you can watch that film, the only film that I didn't like that the pair did was Another You. That was where the totality you could saw Richard Pryor deteriorated. But their chemistry on screen was uncanny. Now Wilder says off they weren't that cool, and I can believe him because I saw a Richard Pryor interview where he was just unloading on Wilder like it was nobody's business. He dropped all kinds of the tea and the lemonade and the ice cubes and the sugar and the stir and the spoon and the. He really went in. Depends on how you look at it. Hindsight, the people would call Richard Pryor crazy, but what he said about the industry then, think about what you've seen the last few years. Anyway, so we're interested to find out they would have done Trading Places. Now, would it have worked? Well, Richard Pryor to me was always the king of comedy. He always will be. But I gotta say, fresh face, hungry Eddie Murphy was the right fit for that movie. And Dan Aykroyd was stiffer than Gene Wilder is. Even though Gene is a pretty ordinary white dude, he ain't stiff in the pants like Aykroyd walks around all, tight cheek, stiff neck turkey, like, oh yes, and all. So that went to the right person. That role, that actually was the better fit in hindsight. Sometimes we always like, well, this is what I talk about favorites and then what's the best. I consider Pryor to be the far superior comedian, Eddie Murphy, but for the role, Eddie was the favorite, and there's no doubt in my mind he was the right man for that role. And Dan Aykroyd was the right man for the role. Aykroyd is a good actor. He's good. He has good comedic chops, but I think Wilder is naturally more funnier. But again, looking at the totality of everything, I'd have to say he went to the right people. So it's interesting when you find out originally Trading Places was supposed to be for Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. It makes sense because of the black and white pairings in film of the last 40 plus years. Those two's rhythm hasn't really been matched. Now you had Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes and White Man Can't Jump. You had chemistry. You've had chemistry, white. You can always guess you could say Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, but it don't hit like Pryor and Wilder did. It doesn't really hit because they hit it in a way where it was almost uncanny that you didn't see those two worlds coming together, and yet it worked, and it was funny, and it really evolved. They got from Silver Streaks to even Another You, which I think came out in '91. You're talking about what 15 years? You're talking about nearly 2 decades almost of hitting it, which is unheard of to have making comedy duos. So um but it's interesting though. And how would it have been if it had been those two? I don't know if it would have quite hit the same. I don't know if it would have quite hit the same. I think Eddie and Dan really made that film work. I really do. Chemistry, the vibe. And it's always interesting when you find out these things because imagine if that had been what have you. But you just never know how these things are going to, how they're going to fall, to fall in the flavor. Most of Pryor's movies after that era, I like JoJo Dance Your Life is Calling, which is loosely based on his life. He didn't really have the same pack and punch because a lot of his movies, pretty much in the '80s, were kind of like, he was doing a paycheck, you know. Uh, some of the movies were just kind of going through the motions, and some of them were down the right, you know. I think uh, some of his movies were just kind of ordinary, didn't really capture them because they really appreciate Pryor to see him. Some kind of hero I think is underrated. The toy I cringe at, but his talent was there. It's just the films didn't capture that greatness of him. You had to catch him on stage really in his totality, appreciate it. But him and Wilder always had magic. Stir Crazy was a classic and must see. And then before um, I can't think too. I can't think right now, but it was the highest at once upon a time. It was the highest grossing film for comedy. So But anyway, tell me what you think. Trading Places almost went to Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. How you think that would have been? Please hit like, subscribe, work on thoughts, comments, and I do respond. Thank you. Wash your hands, keep your mind clear, watch out for another. And please hit that subscribe because when you do requests like this come true, stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. I'm out. Peace.